Well, it's great to be here. It's 5 o'clock in the morning at home, and usually when I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't come stand on the stage and talk to all of y'all, so this is going to be a fun, new experience for me. Like Sarah said, my name is Jay Hill, and I am from southern New Mexico. I consider myself a generation and a half producer. Now, what does a generation and a half producer mean? I want to start off by showing you guys a couple of slides about what New Mexico's like, and some of you are close, and some of you have been down and visited our farm before. But what I like to do is just to show a little bit about what we do in southern New Mexico, what I do as a producer, and what I stand for. What makes Jay Hill tick, and what makes me a little bit different than the average run-of-the-mill producer that you're going to run into on a day-to-day basis. So, Hill Farms, Wholesome Valley Farms. Quick little background. As we started this little campaign, and I say we, me, myself, and I was 16 years old, and I had been bugging my father to actually let me take over the 10 acres that we were farming right in front of his house. And I kept bugging him that I wanted to do something more with my life and that I wanted to do something in agriculture. My father worked for a technical school, and he was a recruiter. He spent a lot of time going around the Southwest talking to kids about going to a technical school for HVAC, for diesel, automotive, things like that, recruiting people. Now, the reason I bring up HVAC is there's a funny story, because yesterday I flew in, got off the plane. I knew that there was a little social going on down here yesterday, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to run down real quick and just go say hi to everybody. Well, sweet Mona in the front foyer there saw me walk by, but I didn't really get a chance to stop and say good morning or good afternoon or whatever. Well, if you saw me yesterday, I was wearing a polo shirt, a ball cap. Yes, I know I need a haircut. Well, long story short, she thought I was the HVAC repair guy. Apparently, it was hot in here, so it's nice. Thanks, I really appreciate that, Miss Mona. But anyways, so my story starts in the sandbox behind my parents' house. We have the 10 acres. Finally, at the age of 16, I've convinced my father that I want to be a farmer. This is what I was called to do. He says, well, what in the world are you going to grow? I don't know. I've been watching all the neighbors and all these big farms operate. What do I want to do? Onions. That's where I came up with onions. He says, what onions? I said, well, everybody around us grows onions, so we ought to be able to grow onions. So we had a 1968 John Deere 4020. And that's where I started. I got to list my first beds, get everything bed shaped, call in, get a planter, got the bank loan all set aside, got my onions planted in the ground. I was so excited I was going to actually get to grow my first crop. And you should have seen the stand of weeds that I had. It was absolutely amazing. I thought, all right, so we've got to get rid of these weeds. The onions are too small to spray. What are we going to do? You know, how am I going to conquer this problem? I said, Dad, I probably need to call and get a crew in here. He said, okay. He's like, well, how much money do you have? I don't have much. I've got enough I got like $60. He said, well, good. And he said, well, just keep that in your pocket. Go buy yourself a hoe and go ahead and start. So my start started not only on a 4020 John Deere tractor, but it actually started hoeing an onion field, 10 acres. And I'll kind of give you a little run up on where we've gone and what we grow and some of the things that we do. But what makes me as a producer different than most people? And what I think needs to happen, especially as a millennial, especially as somebody that has started multiple businesses, what do we need to do as an ag community to not only get off the farm or get off the ranch, but to share our message and what's going on in the southwest part of the state? So I bought a camera a couple years ago. And I've always loved photography. I've always liked looking at pictures. And pictures have always fascinated me because it always feels like if it was a good photograph that you can see yourself standing there. And you can see yourself in that moment. Well, I bought a good camera and I was trying to take a picture. I just bought a new pickup. And of course, like any kid, I want to sit there and show off my new toy. So I was going to take a really shiny picture of my pickup. Well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I was in the middle of irrigating some pecans. And I take this picture, and there's this blob in the back. And I'm like, what in the world is that? And I couldn't really see it on the camera real well. What in the world? So I finally got home and got it uploaded on my camera. It turns out that's the Milky Way. I hadn't really paid attention to that. Well, that was the start that kind of started my avenue into social media. I was so excited. I put it on Facebook and said, hey, everybody check it out. I'm an astrophotographer. I captured the Milky Way. And everybody says, well, what are you doing at 3 o'clock in the morning? And that's where it dawned on me, Well, there's a story to tell about why I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So some of the fun things, and actually, this is an older presentation, but what we usually do is whenever I use this, what we'll do is say, name that crop, give out some caps or stuff like that, but nobody's awake enough to actually get into that. So some of the things we grow cabbage, onions, chili. We grow about 7 different varieties of chili, anything ranging from chili that has no taste or flavor, just for color content for Revlon. So ladies that use it in your makeup and your lipstick and things like that, all the way down to it will peel the paint off of the side of the wall. Carrots, that's a new crop for us. Everything that we grow as far as carrots and now onions is all for seed production. Artichokes, watermelons, cucumbers, things like that for seed. We're here to talk about something else here, manly lettuce. That's a huge thing too, is being able to market yourself as a manly lettuce farmer. Let me get to it. Eat more pork. As a producer in southern New Mexico, as a cattleman in southern New Mexico, my father bought a ranch when I was about 18 years old, right on the Mexican border, and I was honored enough to get to understand a little bit about the cattle business, to understand what it takes to actually produce a cow-calf crop in some of the most ungodforsaken ground you've ever seen in the world. It's amazing to fly into Ohio and you see cows per acre. There we have cows per section, or cow per sections. And so it was really interesting for me to start off, and I want to tell a little bit of story just to kind of lighten the room up a little bit. My mother grew up on the east side of the state. My mother is a beautiful woman, very soft-spoken, always there to support my father. My father is from Spring City, Tennessee. And that's a part, if anybody's from that area, you'll understand what I'm saying. That's a part of the country when you speak that your lips never actually touch when you're talking. So it's always, how you doing this morning? It's good to see you. Always looks like they're in a good mood. It doesn't matter if it's 5 o'clock in the morning or if it's 5 o'clock in the evening. But Dad is always one to, like myself, venture off on something that probably might not always be a great idea, but thinks that we can actually handle a problem without having the right tools. So the reason I tell you this little quick snapshot is we've got about 150 head of replacement heifers on alfalfa. And so we go out to check, and we were going to start moving those heifers in 2 days. So we pull out there, and we're sitting, it's myself, a friend of mine in the back seat of a 1992 3/4-ton Chevy pickup, and we're bouncing along. My mom and dad are in the front seat, and we're talking about how these heifers look, and we're so excited about, getting everything together and moving. Well, my dad's sitting there, and he's looking, and he goes, you know what? He's like, these ladies are really gentle. Why don't we just go ahead and just use a pickup? And he's like, well, just go ahead and make sure we get everything into the pen tonight, and then it'll be just as easy to load them tomorrow as it would be in 2 days. I said, well, Dad, we don't have any horses close. Like, this is not a real thought-out plan. I mean, what if these, heifers run through the hot wire? We don't have anything. Oh, don't worry, it'll be fine. So we're sitting in the back of the pickup and we're cruising along. Well, he does a pretty good job of driving the pickup along real nice and easy and slow, and we get all these heifers into the pen except one. Of course, you've got that one that doesn't go in the pen. So he goes, boys, and we drove around that field about 5 times trying to get her in, and he finally says, boys, we're going to have to rope her. And I said, well, Dad, I don't have a rope except for about a 1-inch cotton hay rope in the back of the truck. And we don't have a horse. He says, perfect. He says, get in the back of the truck. He's like, tie that rope off on the gooseneck ball. He's like, I'm going to drive up right beside her. Quentin, you rope her. Jay, make sure that knot's tied, and we'll choke her down, and then we'll just ease her into the pen. I said, there's no way in the world this is going to work. And my mom's like, Jim, this is really not a good idea. Like, we've got to be home in about 30 minutes. Like, this is not. Dad says, no, it won't take 2 minutes. He says, Quentin, tie you a little hondo in that rope right there. So we jump in the back of the truck. This is before Snapchat, unfortunately. So I'm sitting back there and I'm thinking, what in the world are we about to get ourselves into? Dad has got tires spinning, we've got poop flying, and he is chasing this heifer across this hayfield. We're bouncing over hay borders. You can hear my mom in the front seat squealing as Dad's running up beside her. So I'm like, Quentin, you got a rope her? And he's like, I got it. So he's got this cotton rope that's about that big around, looks like a big wet noodle, and he's trying to spin this rope. And I'm like, there's no way this is going to work. So Dad floors it. We get right up beside the heifer. Quentin throws a loop, and the next thing you know, it hits her right on the rear end, falls off. I'm like, there's no way this is going to work. Now, mind you, I'm still sitting in the back of the truck, just holding onto the rope. I haven't tied anything off. So I'm sitting back there, and Dad says, one more time, Quentin. He says, rebuild that thing. We're going to get it right here. Boom, we take off again, and I mean, I'm laughing, I'm crying. This is probably the most excited day I've ever had in my life. I thought, we're going to die in the middle of this alfalfa field. We get right up next to this heifer, and Quentin just lays the loop out. Sure enough, catches her. Well, I've got about 100 foot of rope, and I'm like, good job. Oh, God. So I'm trying to get my knot tied real quick, whatever. So my dad throws the brakes on and throws both of us into the headache rack. So we're laying there in the back of the truck. Well, the rope just falls out of the back of the truck, and the heifer walks off about 20 yards and stops. So me and Quentin are gathering our thoughts. We're thinking, what in the world is going on, So and Quentin goes, you didn't tie the rope. I said, well, how was I supposed to tie the rope when I was watching you? There's too much excitement. Well, we're sitting there arguing about me not tying the rope off on the gooseneck ball. My sweet mother decides to step out of the pickup. Mind you, Mom has not a lot of ranch background. She walks up to the rope, picks it up. Boys, I've got her right here. And so instantly you all think, drop the rope, just let somebody get to it. So she grabs two hands and grabs a hold of that rope. She says, I got her if you want to come get this rope. So we're bailing out of the truck. Well, of course, we jump out of the truck and we're making all kinds of noise. There's about 10 foot of slack in that rope, and the heifer takes off. And it looked like a cartoon series. My mother was stretched out completely straight, horizontal across that alfalfa field. And I thought, oh, dear God, Mom, please drop that rope. Please drop that rope. She wouldn't drop it. That calf drug her over hay border after hay border after hay border. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we killed Mom. Like, Dad, you killed Mom. And he's going, you're the one that didn't tie the rope. So as we're blaming each other for what's going on, my mom is going around this alfalfa field, So finally the heifer decides to stop. And she's sitting there trying to catch her breath. And Quentin goes up there and goes, sideline her. So the normal thing for me to do would be to run up and grab her tail, lay her over. Well, adrenaline's flowing. My mother's over here moaning. I'm praying to God that she's still alive. Quentin says, sideline her. So I'm just going to do, I'm sophomore in high school. I decided, big and buff, 115 pounds, 6'1". I'm just going to go ahead and drop a shoulder, hit her in the hip, let her lay down. Well, as I get to the heifer, she just kind of squares up a little bit. I hit her, I fall down. Quentin's yelling. Mom gets up, holding the rope. Heifer leaves again with Mom, back down the side of the alfalfa field. And I thought, oh my gosh, what in the world, what have we done to my mother? So we get done finally. My dad drives up with a pickup and ties off on the back ball. We get the heifer stopped, get her in the pen, and we're driving down the road, and my mom's got cuts all over her arms, stomach, jeans are torn. She goes, don't you ever tell anybody about this. I said, why would I never tell anybody about this, Mom? Well, I kind of thought that I was cowgirl, and that was not a very cowgirl experience. My mom's story and the dedication she had to make sure that we got that one heifer in was one of the other pivotal moments in my life where I decided, you know what, there's an awesome story to tell in agriculture. What we do every day is walking out and grabbing that rope. And as a producer, I walk out every day and I grab that rope, and I've got 10 foot of slack in front of me, but I'm going to grab that rope every single morning. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if that heifer's going to take off and drag me across the hayfield, or I don't know if I'm going to get my target achieved that morning or my goal achieved that morning. So long story short, is there anybody from Georgia in here? Pecan? Okay, thank God. So I met a person the other day, and they're like, we're from Georgia, and it's pecan. You say it incorrectly. Well, we're from New Mexico, and it's pecan. So we'll go to bat over that any day of the week. This is Stallman Farms. We're about 21 miles from the Mexican border, and the reason I show some of these, let me see here. That's catchy. Innovation and actually doing things that we say we're going to do. As I have met different producers in this business, it has been mind-blowing to see how people conduct themselves in front of media, in front of people, and how the ag community has actually slidden down a slippery slope and pulled itself back out so fast. The fact that I have the opportunity to wake up every morning and that I get to provide people with safe, affordable food, and everybody says, you're not supposed to call it safe, affordable food anymore. It is. As a producer, that I get to get up, that I get to check on my cows, that I get to check on my crops and make sure that when I sell something to a store, or when I sell it to you, that I know that you're eating the greatest, best tasting, most nutritious, healthy food is an amazing accomplishment. As we look at what propels us and what drives me, you're looking at some fans, and we bought an old poultry facility, 750,000 square feet of concrete space. It was an egg-laying facility. And this facility sat vacant for almost 11 years, and people asked, why in the world would you buy a facility like this? What's your mindset? And I'm really sad that I missed the aquaculture talk yesterday. But what we've done is decided to take over a project that was something that actually negatively affected our area. The way that the company that owned that conducted business and the way that those animals were raised was completely backwards. It was inhumane, and they didn't do a good job of taking care of what they had. And it branded southern New Mexico, as far as eggs, as a bad spot in the world. How do we as producers take something that looked like that was so bad and actually turn it around into something that's good and positive? We decided that we were going to take those chicken coops that are 550 foot long by 50 foot wide, and we are going to build greenhouses. We use a lot of transplants and things like that, so we decided, well, we'll do a retrofit. Now, how do we actually share the story about taking something that was so good or so bad and turning into something that's so good? You're looking at a dryer barn, and I showed you some of the carrots, some of the onion seed that we grow. The problem in southern New Mexico is when monsoon season starts, it doesn't matter what you're growing. It's going to get wet or it's going to get windblown pretty hard. And in seed production, the biggest way of actually drying seed is to lay a huge tarp out in the middle of the field, let the sun do its work. So we walk into these chicken houses, and I see all these fans in these chicken rooms, and I'm like, well, those look like they blow quite a bit of air. Why can't we mount those on a wall and just put all of our seed in a box and then put the box in the dry room and do it that way? So we go ahead and build this room. We had no idea how much air those fans would move. They're, you can measure stuff like that. Apparently, we didn't know that. So we go into the barn, and they're like, how many fans do you want to put in there? And I'm like, oh, the whole wall. Let's just make a huge fan wall, and then we can load the whole thing with seed. Great idea. Get all the seed in there, turn the fans on, and we're not feeling a lot of air. We're standing right there, it's just a little bit of air coming out, but you can hear all those fans are blowing like crazy. Well, then you start to hear this pinging sound. Ping, pew, ping. And I'm thinking, what in the world's going on? And we look up, and the screws are coming out of the wood, and actually the barn is starting to explode. So I'm thinking, oh my God. So we had to go put a couple fans on the back door, on the back wall, just to exhaust the amount of air that we had created in there. But our forklift drivers are coming down the ramp, and we're next to a couple big dairies, so there's quite a few flies flying around. And I go to check on the forklift driver about an hour later, and he's got ski goggles on. And I said, what in the world are you wearing ski goggles for? And he's like, you've never seen flies go that fast. He's like, when you go down the hallway, he says, it'll give you a welt. And I'm like, what in the world? So you walk in the hallway, and so high-tech redneck, taking something that was so bad and actually showing a positive note on it. So people were saying, these chicken fans and this chicken farm and this and that and whatever. Things happen in our past. Agriculture, this happens all the time. Something negative will happen day in and day out. And if we can actually take that, retrofit it, and turn it into something that's positive, even though it's drying seed, and have a happy outlook on what we're actually going to achieve, it's pretty amazing. Those are the bins that we put in. That was the first little room that we tried, and we collapsed those walls due to too much air pressure. Cottonseed. And this stays on the same thing as actually looking at new technology and what is going to change the future of agriculture. I was blessed in the fact that my parents always told me, Jay, if you can dream it, you can do it. I didn't have a whole lot to start with, 10 acres. We're now over 1,000 acres we're growing. During harvest season, we're over 350 employees, and we are conducting different research on different things to see what we can do to change our climate, to change our world, to change the way I do business. We're blessed enough to actually have the only, right now, cotton research mill that is dedicated to glandless cotton. This is cotton that we can actually de-hull, that we can press the oil out of, and then we can use the flour to bake with. Those of you that are that know cotton know that the gossypol that is found in cotton is toxic, and if you don't have multiple stomachs or rumens, you can't ingest cotton. This is the first little pilot plant that we've built, that we're actually taking this cotton, not only feeding it to cows, but we're actually using the cotton proteins to feed to fish, to feed to humans, horses, it doesn't matter. And the fact that we're actually going to step out there and we're going to try some of these things is a little bit different. The reason that I bring up cotton and innovation and the fans and the dryer rooms and things like that, when somebody tells you that you can do anything, there's two ways to take it. You can take, I can do anything as, well, I've got a free leash, I'm going to go to South Padre Island for spring break, or you can take it as, it's chili planting time, or it's calving season, and I'm going to stay on the farm and I'm going to figure out how I can do this more efficiently. And thank God for great parents. It has made me become more mindful about what happens in agriculture and how that changes me as a producer. Sarah talked a little bit about vulnerability, and this picture sums that up all in one. I will take a photo like this and I will post it on the World Wide Web, open to all kinds of criticism. When you look at that picture, what do you think of right off the bat? Pesticide, probably a herbicide, burning a hole in the ozone layer. Actually, we're spraying copper. We just got in a rainstorm and we were spraying copper on top to actually suck up some of the moisture. But the fact that somebody will go out and put that picture on the World Wide Web and explain to people, this is why we have a crop duster. This is why we spray what we spray, and this is when we spray that. That little conversation blossoms that little bitty seed into a full-blown conversation, and that conversation will eventually work its way back to your plate. The people that are so concerned about what I do as a farmer, as a rancher, starts right here. People now, and especially the millennial mindset, and Sarah does an unbelievable job, and I watched a little bit of the panel yesterday, and those girls did a great job. You know, what's this future generation look at besides instant gratification? They want to feel like they are part of something, and they want to feel, or I do too, I'm a millennial, but I want to feel like what I do makes a difference day in and day out. And so by posting something like this and starting a conversation and being able to say, at Hill Farms, we're wide open. You want to come look at our pesticide room? You want to come look at our cattle operation? It has opened a door for me to be able to convey a message of not only agriculture, but positive agriculture. So home, this is my backyard currently. Home in southern New Mexico is amazing. We get to grow all these crops. I grow 65 different varieties of crops, including cattle and one goat. The one goat is an interesting story. As we were moving cows last year, when we started pulling the bulls off, they're pets. I mean, they're essentially pets. We've got big red Angus bulls that as long as the cows are around, everybody's fine. You pull the cows off and Katie bar the door, it's going to be crazy. So this year I went to go feed our bullpen and showed up, and there's Jim Hill from Tennessee is smiling. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, you know, those bulls get pretty cranky. I said, yeah. He goes, found a way to cure it. How's that? Walk in, there's a goat in the middle of the bullpen. Dad found out that if you put a goat in the bullpen, they all become best friends. Everybody calms down. As long as the goat stays in the pen, the bulls are easy to work with. So it's pretty hilarious. But why would I show that picture or let us talk about home? We have to talk about immigration. We have to talk about actually who are the people that are harvesting the food that you eat day in and day out. We employ 350 people, like I said, during harvest season. And as new administration has come on, there's been a lot of questions. What's happening on the border fence? What's happening with livestock in regards to the border fence? There's been many times when I've gone down to friends' places on the border where you can actually step across into Mexico and never touch a piece of metal. I'm talking barbed wire fence, I'm talking Trump's wall, whatever you want to talk about. As far as biosecurity and as far as what's going on the border, we do need to do something. to one, not only protect our border, two, to make sure that our livestock are healthy. As we look forward to what we have to do, we have to walk a fine line. And as a producer, walking this fine line is very hard. Because at what point do I need to mechanize as a producer, as a vegetable farmer, to become more affordable, to be able to sell something that I can compete with Mexico or with China or with Peru. But at the same time, what's the human aspect of that? If I go out tomorrow and buy machines to harvest all of the produce that I grow now, if we go up and throw the wall all the way across the southern border, what does that have on the human side? And I never thought that as a farmer, as a rancher, that I would ever have to think about what happens on the human side of things. As we look forward to the next 3 3/4 years with Donald Trump, I think we have to do a better job as ag producers to actually understand what's going to happen to the people that are directly involved in agriculture. And I'm not talking about just the producer. I'm not talking about the guy in the pickup. I'm not talking about the guy on the horse. I'm talking about the guys that are cutting your lettuce, the guys that are helping you during branding season, and figuring out really what's going to happen and what's the best way to do it. We all agree that we need to streamline immigration and figure out what needs to happen there. But these conversations that we have, me standing on a stage talking about people that work in the field or people that are crossing the border or animal livestock that actually cross the border, those conversations aren't happening. These conversations need to start, and we need to be able to sit here and look at it diplomatically and say, you know what, there's a human aspect to this, and there is a financial aspect to this, and we need to figure out what is the best solution. The fact that our southern border is still so open, and the fact that so many of my good friends that live on the border do not feel safe to go check water after a certain time because of, drug crossings, because of human crossings, because of different things like that, that's a huge problem. At the same time, a person that works on my farm is worried about being ripped away from their family and sent back across the border because their paperwork was not completely in order is another one. So being able to take both sides of this story and be able to figure out what we need to do is a conversation that as producers, we need to do better. There's that blob in the sky again. So how do I communicate? Pretty pictures. It's easy. Just go out, get a good camera. Take a good picture, throw it on social media. That's all you have to do to communicate, right? You have to be able to engage people. You have to be able to get on somebody else's level. The fact that you're going to sit down and have a conversation about exactly why would you use a calf table at this ranch? Why would you use a herbicide on this crop? The fact that you can draw people in through a pretty picture is a great tool and is a great avenue. And I found out that my photography is a great way to start a conversation. But as far as taking the time to explain what I do as a producer, that's up to me and that's up to you, especially producers. Vets, that's another huge thing. I love Snapchat. It's 10 seconds. It's rude, crude, it's in your face, and I'm able to explain exactly what's going on in my day. I usually try to keep an upbeat tempo. I usually am a pretty happy person when it comes to life. When our vet gets to the farm, she always makes sure that she has her makeup done now. And she always has her hair done and pulled back. I feel so bad for Tiff because she shows up and I'm like, "Good morning, Doc." And she's like, "I'm going to start charging you for media time." But the fact that she comes up and she's so open to us using social media, and the fact that we can say, this is why we're doing ultrasounds today. This is how we preg check. This is not called a rape rack. This is how we actually check for pregnancy. The reason that we're using a rub or the reason that we're using an antibiotic on this sick animal is this reason. I do have a 15-minute long Snapchat run of my first time in a pork barn. I have lots of friends that are hog farmers and pork producers, and I have never been in a pork barn until 3 weeks ago. I have never taken so many showers in my life. But the opportunity to go in and see exactly where bacon comes from and how bacon seeds start as a farmer, that was pretty amazing. And the fact that I was able to take that video, throw it onto Facebook, and see what happened. I think 15,000 views in the first week, just quick. And this is not sponsoring ads and doing all kinds of crazy things, but people are so curious about how agriculture works. Everybody touts the slogan, "I am 2%. I am the only 2%. Well, we're not even 2% anymore. And then when you look at my age group of people that are actually saying, you know what, I want to be a farmer. I'm going to start off with 10 acres. I'm going to do this. We're unicorns. We're non-existent anymore. And the fact that people are not stepping up to do our job, it scares me. And the fact that so many people consume what we produce and we don't have a say-so at what we do is amazing. So that's what it all boils down to. World record green chili cheeseburgers. That's kind of what I live for now. This picture sums up the pride that I have for farming. I know it sounds funny, but the fact that the bacon came from an uncle, that the beef came from me, that the salad came from me, the fact that the local brewery stepped in next to us and said, let's do this together, the fact that we had a whole community together and that we actually did a world record green chili cheeseburger says something. It's the human element, it's the human aspect to being a producer. And I want to encourage anybody, especially veterinarians, especially producers, especially people that work in social media. We have to do a better job of showing the human side to what we do. I followed my dad's role. As he says, son, you outkicked your coverage, and I sure did. I got an unbelievable wife that came from town, and she's been hanging out on the farm with me for almost a little over 5 years now. And to watch her slowly put her mind around what it means to be a farmer's wife, to go out, check our cattle, to go out, check our crops, and see the joy that she has in that gives me great hope that as producers, we can change that message. The fact that she was, painted nails and puppy dog tails and all those cute little cliches, and the fact that now she's willing to get her hands dirty and she loves her lifestyle is amazing. I am proud to be a farmer, and I'm proud to be able to have an opportunity to stand in front of other producers and people that are in the ag world and share my story. Snapchat, Instagram, if you're on there, username HillJ45. And then I always put on a little group of people that you should follow. These are some of the best advocates in the business. These are some of the people that I turn to day in and day out and have learned so much about. So if you are thinking about getting on one of these social media platforms, take your phone out, take a picture. If you have any questions about what I do, please feel free to ask. Thank you, guys.